Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Welcome back to my channel. Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments, and if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. Dan. So here's the story. My relationship with my ex-wife is not like what many of you have with your partners. When I first met Laura, she was the most beautiful and charming woman I'd ever known. We met in college while I was studying engineering, and we dated on and off for more than a year before I asked her to marry me the first time. Being with her felt intense, almost overwhelming, and I got lost in her presence. I thought everything she did was amazing. To me, she seemed almost perfect. But there was a big problem with how I saw things. The way I imagined our life together was very different from reality. When I proposed to Laura, she said no. I recognized rejection when I saw it, so I let go of the idea of a life with her and moved on. We still dated occasionally, but I didn't expect us to be a couple. Women like Laura leave a mark on you. They stay in your mind. They can be hard to forget, much like the 2 cups of coffee I need each morning to start my day. If I have at least one, I can go on with my life, but I really like having 2. Laura was like that. Spending time with her was better than not being with her at all, and better than being with anyone else. I needed a certain amount of her to get through my day. It's hard to put into words, but if you've ever had a strong feeling about something, then you understand. It doesn't always make sense. It just is. But I realized that being with Laura was not the best choice for me. She believed she needed to connect with multiple people to feel happy. It sounds strange, right? I thought so then, and I still do. But Laura was sure she couldn't thrive without those connections. It took me a long time to accept that. I found her viewpoint hard to grasp. The idea of accepting that kind of relationship was completely foreign to me. So I dated other women and kept searching for the right one. I met several great candidates over about 2 years. There were at least 5 women I thought could be wonderful partners. But for different reasons, none of them worked out. 2 were very eager and wanted to start planning our future right from the first date. They were talking about how many kids we would have, where we would live, and the little details of our home life. That felt too fast for me, so I moved on, believing in keeping my options open for the best outcome. A couple of the women I dated were more casual and made it clear that marriage didn't interest them, so I enjoyed the time I spent with them before moving on. One woman was different. She decided she wanted to become a priest. Her sudden decision was unexpected, but I realized she was following what truly made her happy. The surprising part was that she had a lively personality, which left me feeling tired after being around her, but her commitment was clear, so I respected that. At first, I thought her choice was just a way of ending our relationship, but when I saw her again a few months later, I could see it was genuine. She dressed more modestly now, and her behavior felt changed, too. During the time of difficult relationships, I still kept in touch with Laura and sometimes met her at clubs or other social spots. She was also going through a series of brief relationships, moving from one to another in just a few days or months. Each would end, and she would find a new partner. I was focused on my education, making that my priority. After earning my engineering degree, I got a job in the Seattle area. It didn't take long for me to want more than what I had, so I took 2 years off to explore other options. I will share those details later. When I returned to Seattle, I went back to my old job. In some ways, it felt like I hadn't left, but in other ways, everything was different. I hadn't returned home during those 2 years, and I hadn't spoken to Laura. After she had declined my interest, I knew it was time to move forward. I understand when I'm not wanted, so I set a new goal for my life, to become a successful engineer, earn a good living, and maybe find someone special to share my life with and build a family. That's what I envisioned. But things don't always go as planned. One Friday night, a couple of months after being back in Seattle, I went out for a drink and a bite to eat at a downtown spot popular with people willing to pay more just to be seen. Living downtown in a small 1-bedroom, I decided to enjoy myself and see if I could meet someone nice. To my surprise, I saw Laura. She asked how I was doing, and I shared the main points of my life, leaving out anything too personal. Her reactions were thoughtful, and it seemed like she was taking mental notes, perhaps thinking I was struggling to connect with others. Then one night, Laura called and asked if she could come over. I was surprised she still had my number after almost 3 years. I hadn't changed it, even when I went to Canada, as it was cheaper to keep my U.S. number. So I thought, why not? I invited her over. I found a bottle of wine to share and quickly tidied up my small living space. I loaded the dishwasher and turned it on just as the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I was greeted by a lovely woman. "Laura, please come in." We enjoyed some wine and chatted as if we were old friends. I was curious about why she had come over now. Laura always had plans for the future, so I wondered what was on her mind. After some light conversation, she got to the main point of her visit. She wanted to start dating again, and she wanted to date me. I couldn't help but think about what had changed that made me suddenly appealing to her. If I hadn't been the one before, what made me her top choice now? I didn't feel like I had changed much in the past 2 years, so it seemed like she had experienced some kind of realization. I wasn't sure what that was, but I was curious to hear what she had to say. Eventually, she opened up. A year later, Laura and I were engaged. I know what you might be thinking. She had turned me down before. I had a ring in my pocket. I got down on one knee in front of her and asked her to marry me. She said no. I took it as a sign that I wasn't the one for her. She was part of the reason I went to Canada to go back to school. Those 2 years went by quickly. I worked a lot and hardly took time to relax. I focused on learning as much as I could at the Canadian University, which was a great chance for me. This past year challenged my thoughts about relationships. You see, I didn't plan to ask Laura to marry me, fearing I would hear no again. It felt like Charlie Brown expecting to kick the football, only for Lucy to pull it away every time. This time Laura asked, but it was different. She said she loved me and wanted to be with me, but she had a condition. She needed to have her own needs met. She knew she could have me however she wanted. After being turned down before, I shouldn't have let her in that night. I should have said, "Sorry, Laura, not interested." But I didn't. I felt weak around her, and she knew it. When someone I felt strongly for, but who wasn't right for me, asked me to marry her, I knew what my answer would be. That night was unique. There was a strong connection that felt electric. I was surprised by how captivating Laura was, how her smile and eyes drew me in. We enjoyed the evening together, sharing laughter and light conversation, and it felt significant for us. We made a deal that I agreed to, thinking it would help us be happy as a couple. We decided on an open marriage, meaning we could have casual relationships with other people. We set some rules to keep things in order. I thought our commitment meant we should prioritize each other. However, we needed to establish some distance in our lives apart. I knew if I didn't agree, Laura would leave, and I would regret it. Yet I also worried I'd regret the choice to pursue this lifestyle. The knot in my stomach reminded me to be careful around her and not become too clingy, as that would only push her away. Agreeing to an open marriage felt like helping someone manage an addiction. With Laura able to explore connections outside our relationship, it might help her find balance. I wasn't sure if that was right or wrong, but it was what we felt we needed for our marriage to work, as strange as that may sound. My attraction to Laura was deep, and I loved her in a way that felt unconditional. So, if agreeing to an open marriage meant I could keep her in my life, that's what I was willing to do. Some may think I was misguided, and they might be right. I mean, what husband agrees to let his wife be with others without affecting their marriage? Especially since I wanted a family and children, not just a complex arrangement. We sat down and had some honest conversations about what an open marriage would mean for both of us. We talked about our own expectations and set clear boundaries. We focused on key questions: who, what, where, when, and how often. I felt worried about Laura meeting new people. I thought it could lead to complications, which was my biggest fear. Meeting strangers seemed risky, so we agreed to take time to get to know anyone new before moving forward. We also decided that neither of us would bring someone back to our apartment. We made plans for things we wanted to do together and promised to keep those plans intact, even with outside relationships. We agreed to engage in extra activities no more than once a month. We would try to plan our outings together, but we would be flexible for important events that came up unexpectedly. We set emotional boundaries too. If a casual relationship started to feel deeper, we needed to talk about what that meant for our marriage. I told Lara that if she wanted a stronger connection with someone else, she had to be honest with me. If she felt less for me, we might need to rethink our marriage. I didn't say it outright, but our discussion was about love and commitment. We shared love and closeness together, while other relationships didn't need to include that kind of affection. I knew it could be tough for many people to separate those feelings, but we needed to be clear about this in our open marriage. I wanted to be the only one she loved, just as I wanted her to be the only one I loved. We talked about how much time was suitable to spend with other partners. We set limits on casual relationships, such as no overnight visits or weekends. Our marriage would always be our top priority. We planned to limit the number of times we met others to avoid getting too attached. We needed a way to recognize any emotional feelings that might develop in those encounters, which was tricky, since we didn't fully know how to gauge that. So, we agreed to talk openly about it. We decided how much to share with each other and the people we interacted with. We needed to be clear that our outside meetings were just for fun, not for romance. Usually that was straightforward, but for ongoing interactions, we needed to communicate that clearly from the start. We planned to review our arrangement every 2 weeks to discuss our experiences and make any necessary adjustments. We chose Sundays for this, as they would not interfere with our date nights. We committed to being truthful with each other and addressing any feelings, especially jealousy, which could be the toughest part of our open marriage. Emotions are complex and can be hard to put aside. It takes understanding to manage feelings of jealousy so that they don't harm our relationship. As time went on, we added other rules, one of which was not to discuss other relationships in detail. This was important for me, as it sometimes affected my confidence and made me feel uncomfortable, as if I was being compared. I also had my own relationships, so I had to be careful not to compare them to Lara's. I found different qualities in people that I liked, but it wouldn't have been right to come home and talk about them with her. This all feels a bit impersonal and maybe a little confusing, too. But we decided to try and make our marriage work. For the first 2 years, it did. We were both happy, busy with our careers, and continued to live our lives together yet separately. Lara had a few relationships, while I explored a couple of different connections before settling on one. We enjoyed many activities as a couple, like taking vacations, going out on weekends, and sharing hobbies. I love cycling and compete in local races in Washington and Oregon. I'm not a champion, but am happy if I finish in the top 10. I have a couple of bikes. One is a Trek road bike, and my main bike is a Rocky Mountain Growler, which I got for under $1,000. It's sturdy and meets my needs. I know I'm not going to become a top cyclist or a Tour de France competitor, but I really enjoy it, and it gives me a great workout. When I can't ride, I run or hit the gym. You probably want to know more about me and Lara. My name is Daniel Lewis Stewart. My dad has traced our family roots back to Scotland before the Battle of Culloden, where my ancestors played important roles. I've walked the battlefield where the Jacobites and the British faced off in 1746. The Jacobite side lost then, but the fight for Scottish independence continues today. Instead of battles, people now use words, media, opinions, and votes. One day Scotland will govern itself, and it will be a reason to celebrate for both Scots and those living abroad. I love the beauty of my home country, which reminds me of the rugged landscapes of Montana, Wyoming, and Washington State. I am proud of my heritage. My parents are newly retired and live nearby. My dad was an engineer who did well and invested wisely in technology. Now he and my mom travel around North America in a big RV. I have an older brother in medical school, which takes a long time, and a younger sister who wants to be a lawyer and often jokes about my brother's career. He doesn't find it funny. Neither my brother nor sister are married, and as far as I know, they aren't in any serious relationships. I studied mechanical engineering at Washington State University, also called UW. I enjoy problem solving and designing environmentally friendly solutions. We need to protect our planet to ensure a good future. To further my education, I returned to school for a master's degree in mechanical engineering. I spent 2 years at a top university in Eastern Canada, learning from some of the best, and I really benefited from the experience. My wife is Lara Marie Donaldson, and she comes from Seattle. As I mentioned before, we met at the University of Washington. She studied business and got a job at a big company nearby that works with computers and software. Lara now has a job at a national bank in the commercial lending section. She makes a good salary and even gets yearly bonuses that can be about 20% of her pay. Her family lives close by. Her parents are alive and well, and her dad has recently retired after serving as an army officer. He is a very serious and straightforward person. Her mother teaches in an elementary school and is also set to retire soon. They plan to travel a lot together. Lara has an older sister who lives in California. Standing about 5'8" inches tall and weighing 125 pounds, Lara has striking features and a warm presence. She naturally draws attention wherever she goes. I feel lucky to be with her, but sometimes it feels like I'm sharing that luck more than I'd like. 2 years later, my phone is beeping, waking me up. I need to check it because it might be from Lara. She's spending the night with a friend and it's just after 6 a.m. We weren't supposed to do that. Staying over was against our rules. I'm not sure how we let that happen and am not happy about it. I tried to bring it up, but I keep getting brushed off. I looked at the screen and saw a number I didn't recognize. I considered not answering since it could be a spam call, but I knew I had to check just in case it was Lara. With a sleepy voice, I answered, "Hello?" I heard crying on the other end right away, and I sat up in bed, alert. "Lara, is that you?" Her voice was shaky. I could tell something was very wrong. She was crying and trying to speak at the same time. "Dan?" "Lara, I'm here. What's wrong? I need you to come get me right away." "Where are you?" "I'm at the Warfield, downtown." "I know where that is. What's wrong?" "I need you to come get me. Please bring me some clothes." I tried to get more details, but she hung up after giving me the room number and repeating her request for clothes. I quickly packed sweatpants, a shirt, a bra, underwear, socks, and her running shoes into a sports bag and rushed to my car. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Kirkland, not too far from downtown, but it felt like forever to get there in an emergency. Luckily, it was early with little traffic. I parked in front of the hotel, grabbed the bag, and hurried inside to the elevator. When I reached her floor, I took a wrong turn to her room and had to backtrack. That felt like it took ages. I knocked on the door and called Lara's name. I heard movement inside, and the door opened slowly. When I stepped in, I was shocked by what I saw. Lara ran to me, and I hugged her tightly. She was upset, struggling to catch her breath with tears streaming down her face. It was clear she had been through something difficult. I noticed she had a swollen eye and bruises on clothes. I did find her purse, and all her personal items were inside. I called her phone and heard it ringing from under the bed. I got it and put it in the bag with her clothes. "Where are your clothes, Lara?" I asked. "I think he took them with him. I'm not sure," she replied. She was still hurt, so I helped her stand as we hurried to my car. I wanted to go to the nearest hospital, but she stopped me. "Please take me home instead." "You need to see a doctor," I said. "I will, but just take me home, please." I didn't want to, but I agreed. When we got to our apartment, she went straight to the shower, staying there for almost an hour to let the hot water soothe her sore muscles. I gave her some pain relief and a glass of juice, which she took before going back to the shower. Eventually, she finished up, changed into warm pajamas, and got into bed. I knew we had tough talks ahead, but for now, she needed to rest. She slept for nearly 12 hours before finally making her way to the kitchen. I was sitting at the counter when I heard her coming. She looked shyly at me, and I motioned for her to take a seat. Her back was still hurting, so I found a cushion for her. I made her some vegetable soup and a chicken sandwich because she needed something to eat. "How are you feeling?" I asked. "A bit better. The shower and sleep helped a lot," she replied. I could tell by my expression that I was concerned. "You're going to see a doctor. That's not negotiable. I've already made an appointment for you. After you eat, get dressed, and he'll take you." Lara frowned, showing she wanted to avoid the doctor. "I've told them you need to be checked and want all the necessary tests." She stared at her soup, and even though she didn't argue, I knew she wasn't eager to go. A little while later, we were in the car heading to the doctor. I was clear with the nurse when I called, telling her what had happened. I knew Lara needed medical help. My top priority was to make sure she got the care she needed. My second priority was to find out who she was with and talk to that person. After the doctor examined Lara, she looked concerned. "What happened to your wife?" she asked, not waiting for my reply. "She definitely should see the police." I nodded and sighed. "Please make that call. She won't let me do it." Hours later, After the police took statements from Laura and the doctor, we finally went home. The officers seemed frustrated, realizing that Laura had initially been with the man in the hotel room, but I could see things had escalated. I could sense they thought there were problems in our marriage. The detective had handled many strange cases, so this would just be another situation to document. I needed to think carefully before we moved on. But first, we went home. For the next few days, there was a heavy silence between us. I could tell that Laura hoped to forget everything that had happened, thinking that as the signs faded, the feelings would go away too. But it wasn't that easy. After 3 weeks, Laura had gone back to work for 2 weeks. I took a few days off, but then it was back to my regular routine. Our apartment felt really cold. I knew I had to talk about the issue that was hanging between us. After dinner on Friday, I poured Laura a glass of wine and said, "Laura, we need to talk." The fear on her face was clear. I sat down at the table and asked her to join me. This was not going to be a light conversation. "Laura, I'm worried about you. I don't want you to get hurt, and I'm not sure you are making the best choices for your safety in our open marriage. I want you to stop seeing other men." There was tension that I didn't say. For me, it meant I couldn't stay married to her while watching her make risky choices. I was so upset that I started to shake. I stood up and walked around, trying to stay calm. "I'm really worried about you. What you did was dangerous. What were you thinking?" Laura looked down at the table and seemed uneasy. "Dan, I thought he was okay. I had met him before, and this was the second time we had spent time together." I was getting more frustrated. "Well, this is concerning. You broke many of the rules we agreed to when we got married. Did you forget about them? It looks to me like you did. You didn't share the usual things you are supposed to tell me. I can't trust you anymore. What am I supposed to think? What should I do?" Laura stayed quiet, staring at her wine glass. She took a big sip and sighed deeply, as if she had been holding her breath. I took a small drink and continued with what I felt was needed. "Laura, I'm leaving for a while. I can't handle this anymore. I worry about you all the time, and I feel like I might get sick from this situation." Her head shot up, and she looked at me, clearly surprised by my words. She didn't say anything. Laura knew I loved her enough to deal with a lot. I agreed to let her see other people just so I could be near her. I was also seeing someone else, so I understood that we were both part of the problem. When we got married, I thought those matters would fade, especially if we started a family. I believed the responsibilities of family would bring us together. We both would be committed to each other, and our young mistakes would be behind us. But it didn't turn out that way. Laura wanted safety in our relationship while also trying to keep up the image of a typical married couple with careers and plans. However, we didn't really plan for our future. Over the past year, Laura's involvement with others outside our marriage grew a lot, changing from what we had agreed to into something more frequent. Our closeness faded, and we found ourselves connecting only once every couple of weeks. As my time with my wife grew shorter, I found myself spending more hours at work and with a woman named Sarah Ann Walker. I met her through the university. She's about 30 years old, divorced, and has a 2-year-old daughter. Sarah is an architect and has worked on various projects I've been part of since finishing my master's degree. With her lovely brown hair and refined features, she really stands out. Standing about 5'10" inches in fit, she moves with a grace that captured my attention from the start. She's probably the smartest person I know and shows a depth of understanding that goes beyond her age. Not long after we met, we worked together on a design for a tech company. They wanted a building that was environmentally friendly, which meant we had to follow the latest guidelines to minimize its environmental impact while staying within their budget. I can design almost anything to be eco-friendly, but that requires money. Many businesses want to seem like they care for the environment while also considering costs during construction. So Sarah and I teamed up to meet the client's needs, which led to long hours together. During that time, we learned a lot about each other and built a close friendship. I suggested that my wife, Laura, meet Sarah so they could talk and keep things clear. I was open about everything. I realize some may find this situation odd or sentimental, but this is our reality. The nature of love and attraction is often complicated. What draws one person to another doesn't always apply to everyone. Some men like taller women, while others prefer shorter ones. Some are attracted to slimmer figures, while others like fuller shapes. Everyone has different tastes, and these can change over time. This variety is one reason for the high divorce rate. If everyone was completely happy with their partners all the time, fewer people would choose to separate. I have a friend who is a couple of years older than me, stands about 5'9" and is slim. He loves his wife, who is the same height but has a fuller build. She is not overweight. She has lovely curves and is a beautiful person. They are very much in love and have 4 children. He often tells me how wonderful life is with her and how special their moments together are. He jokes that they might have even more children in the future. His funny stories about family life always make me smile, and I can't help but admire his happiness. I felt a connection with Sarah, and it seemed to be mutual. Our friendship gave me the stability I craved. Unlike Laura, who enjoyed the thrill of meeting new people, I wanted consistency. You might wonder why I stayed with a partner who sought other connections. I have asked myself that many times. The answer often comes back to my emotions regarding Laura. Despite expressing love, she has always struggled with commitment. That uncertainty has weighed heavily on me. This was especially true after an incident at a hotel in Seattle, which served as a wake-up call. It became clear that our relationship needed to change. Laura would need to choose a committed relationship with me or accept that our marriage might end. Deep down, I realized that our open marriage likely couldn't last. My wish for a family made it clear that we needed to find a new way forward. I knew I had to change for my own peace of mind. That Friday night, we talked honestly at the dining room table. I told Laura that I would be leaving for a few weeks. This was not open for discussion. We both needed time to think about what mattered to us and what our future might look like, whether together or apart. Laura looked at me with pain in her eyes. "Please, Dan, don't leave me. I promise I'll try harder with what we agreed on." "Laura, I'm not sure you remember our agreement. You have ignored the important things we both needed if we were to stay married while also having our own independence. It's become too much." I took a small sip of my drink. "Let's not pretend that it hasn't. I am not unaware. You still show signs of past difficulties that aren't fully behind you." Laura took a big drink and stared at the table. Her silence showed she understood my point, even if she didn't say it out loud. I continued. "I need to take some time away. I can't stay and watch this continue. You have to decide what you really want. If you want to stay married, changes have to happen, and we must do it now. Otherwise, I think we're finished." That was my final word. I looked at Laura, who kept her gaze down, her silence saying a lot. Deep down, I knew she wasn't going to change or become the partner I truly hoped for. The quiet in the room felt heavy. When I looked at her and she wouldn't meet my eyes, I knew she didn't really want me. I got up from the table and went to the bedroom to start packing. I thought I would need about a week's worth of clothes. By the end of the week, I would know if I was leaving for good or if there might be a chance for us. Laura didn't say a word as I gathered my things. I came out with a suitcase, a sports bag, and my laptop bag. I picked up a few other items from the closet by the front door. My bikes and helmets were in the garage. It wouldn't take long to load them onto the rack of my car. I had a small Subaru Crosstrek, which was perfect for me. It had good all-wheel drive and enough space for all my gear. It was also easy to drive and park. I loaded everything onto the car quickly and drove away slowly. Laura stayed behind in the apartment. Deep inside, I knew I was leaving my marriage and old life behind. I felt pain everywhere. Later, I realized I had left my phone and purse behind. Upset, I called Dan from the hotel phone. He came to help me. He took me home, helped me clean up, fed me, and even took me to a doctor. Dan was mad at me for going to the hotel with someone else. But honestly, I didn't expect things to turn out that way. I wasn't thinking. Maybe I do need help. It might be too late for me to save my marriage. I moved in with a friend for a few days. Staying in his spare room got old fast, so I decided I needed a break from everything. I called work and set up a couple of weeks off. Then I took my bike and hit the trails in the hills east of the city. I needed to be outdoors, get some exercise, clear my mind, and figure out what was important to me. It took a few days of not thinking about anything before I could face the issues with Laura. On the fourth night, I took out a notepad and wrote down my thoughts. You might think I would use my phone since I work with technology every day, but this time I chose to go old school with pen and paper. One of the main things on my mind was the challenge of sharing my life with Laura. When I decided to marry her, I thought it was worth any difficulties to have her by my side most of the time. Being with her felt better than being alone, but now I was starting to question that. The time we spent apart seemed to overshadow our time together. Lately, it felt like I had her with me only part of the time. I began to feel like I was a burden in her life. She often canceled our plans at the last minute to do something else. I understood what those plans meant. Our marriage felt like just a piece of paper. I felt like an afterthought, a reminder that I was sometimes in her life. Riding my bike on mountain trails for 80 miles gave me a new perspective. Doing it for 5 days made me rethink my beliefs. During that time, I made some important decisions. I decided to cut myself off from everyone. I turned off my phone and spent my nights in a simple motel in the hills, where there was no good internet. I cleared my mind and my body. At the end of the week, I returned to the city and rented a small Airbnb. I brought with me the paper where I had written my most personal thoughts. It was also the place where I figured out my plans for the future. After getting back to the city, I spent some time taking care of things. I first cleaned my equipment and then took care of myself. I enjoyed a long hot shower while sipping a cold drink. This was my time to relax and finalize what I needed to do next. I tried to get in touch with Dan this past week. I called his office and they told me he had taken some time off, but they didn't know what he was doing. I also left him a message on his phone. I knew that he and his wife had an open marriage and that she liked meeting other people. I understood that Dan wasn't completely comfortable with this idea. Our relationship was casual. We had no commitments to each other. We normally met once a week just to enjoy each other's company. It was a nice way to unwind. I believed Dan and his wife would find balance in their open marriage. If they decided to have children, that might change everything for them, and they would likely focus more on each other. They would learn the importance of commitment, which is vital for a successful family. My own husband had decided early in our marriage that commitment wasn't for him. He also realized that being a father wasn't something he wanted, so he believed it was best not to stay married. We divorced, and that turned out to be the right choice for everyone. He moved to Connecticut to work for an insurance company. I get a small check every month for child support, which I save for my daughter's education. She is only 2 years old and hardly remembers her father. Honestly, I barely remember him either. Dan, on the other hand, is a good person at heart. He has a strong sense of right and wrong. That's why I was surprised when he told me that he and his wife have a unique marriage. The more I learned about him, the more I understood. He truly loves his wife, but he realizes she can never be fully devoted to him. So as part of their agreement, he and I became good friends. We've been close friends for several months now, and it's been great. This relationship has been good for me because I can meet my needs without a romantic commitment. I wasn't looking for a serious relationship when we started. I had a tough time in the past and don't want to face that again. This arrangement has worked well for Dan, too, as he gets to explore a different kind of friendship. I've been honest with him, saying that what we have is casual and that I'm not looking for anything deeper. It also helps me avoid the whole dating scene, which I don't have time for. So we've been good for each other. But now, I wonder how much longer this can last. He's a great guy. Laura. Dan left me. He packed some bags, took his mountain bike, and left. I don't know where he went. I called some of his friends in his workplace, and they don't know where he is. I'm not sure what he's feeling. We agreed before we got married that we could see other people. He knows what I need and was fine with me seeking that independence. I know he's a wonderful partner. He always does what I want. So why now? Why can't he handle this? Yes, things got complicated with someone at the hotel. I admit I should have stopped before it went too far. But that was just once. And Dan has a girlfriend. I think her name is Susan. I'm not exactly sure, I forget the details. He mentioned her, but I've lost track of most of what he said. So what's bothering him? Dan will come back. He will heal and return. He can't stay away from me for long. I turned him down when he first proposed, and he came back then. He's been gone for a while without calling. Maybe once he realizes what he is missing, he will come back to me. I might call him in a few days. Dan. These past 2 weeks have given me a chance to reflect on my life. I've thought about my past mistakes and what I truly want. Looking back, I'm unsure if marrying Lara was the right choice. Yes, She's beautiful and charming, but that's about it. I might have rushed into marriage due to desperation. Maybe she saw me as a source of stability amidst her unpredictable life. I think that's how she sees me, as a safe spot she returns to after her relationships get complicated. But I can't be that for her anymore. I need a few more days to sort things out, then I have to get my life back on track. Sarah texted me yesterday. She checked to see if I was okay. I replied simply, "I will be." She offered to help, saying, "Let me know if there's anything I can do." Her messages brought me comfort. Sarah is a kind person. Even as friends, she shows she cares about others. I want to be a father someday, but I know in my heart that Lara isn't the right person to be the mother of my children. This is so confusing. But I have a clearer idea now of what I need to do to resolve it. Sarah. I hadn't heard from Dan in 2 weeks, which worried me. So I decided to text him. I needed to let him know I was aware his wife, Lara, is struggling emotionally. She is using Dan to appear like everything is fine and for a safe space when she's not with her other partners. It might sound harsh, but that's how I see it. Dan is kind and deserves better than being taken advantage of by her. I know what it's like to watch a marriage fall apart. After we had our daughter, Matilda, my husband decided he didn't want to be a father or husband anymore. He pulled away from us and started seeing other people. When I found out, I asked him to leave. He seemed relieved, knowing his responsibilities were over. Now I barely think of him, except for a small child support check that arrives twice a year. I don't need the money. I have a good job as an architect. What I really want is a partner who has strong values and morals. Maybe Dan could be that person. I don't want to see Lara fall apart, but I will take care of myself and learn from my past mistakes. It might sound selfish, but if Lara loses him, perhaps I could gain the chance to be happy. Dan is worn out right now. He feels it more in his mind than in his body. This morning he went for a long run and felt good afterwards. He left early, and there were only a few other runners out. When he finished a few hours later, the streets were busy with people and cars. This morning he has a meeting with a lawyer to discuss getting a divorce. He knows it's time to start this process and that he needs support. Lara and he don't own much, but they share an apartment, some cars, and other things. I'm still paying student loans and trying to save money, hoping for a better future, especially if I want to have children someday. Dan, later that day. The meeting with the lawyer went as expected. What I want is called a dissolution of marriage here. It means the marriage is irretrievably broken, and there's no chance of it working out. Since they don't have kids or a lot of belongings, the process should be simple. We'll file an application with the court, and if both agree to the terms, it can be done quickly, usually in about 90 days. I gave the lawyer a list of what we own and what we owe, and I asked her to start the paperwork. I plan to take the application with me when I talk to Lara. I need to reach out to her later this week and set up a time to talk. It's been over 2 weeks since I last contacted her, and she hasn't reached out to me either, so I think she may be busy with her own life. I haven't spoken much with Sarah either, so I'm not sure what's happening with her. She might be staying away from me since she knows how complicated my life has become. I need to move on from Lara and focus on getting back to my routine. Yesterday, I received a call from Lara's mother. She mentioned that she hadn't heard from her daughter in a few weeks. When I told her I had moved out, there was a pause. Then she asked me, "What's going on, Dan?" I didn't want to share too much, so I said we had been having some disagreements and that it was best for us to be apart. Lara's mother is understanding and knows her daughter's behavior well. She had hoped that getting married would change things. "Oh, is she still seeing other people?" she asked. I paused before answering. "I'm sorry, but yes. It's gotten worse and I can't keep going like this. She doesn't seem interested in changing, and I need to leave for my own peace." She was quiet for a moment. "I understand, Dan. You have to do what's right for you. Let me know if I can help in any way." With that, she ended the call. "Lara, I need to talk to Dan, but I'm scared to call him. I know he's hurting. Maybe it's best to give him space. I feel restless here in the apartment waiting for him to call or come home. I'm not sure what to do." My mom called and expressed her frustration. She used some strong words I hadn't heard before. She wanted to know why I had been unfaithful to Dan. I couldn't tell her the whole truth, could I? That's not something you share with your mom. So I shared a bit about my mistakes and left it at that. My phone is ringing. and Dan's picture just popped up on the screen. Maybe he's coming home. "Hello, Dan." There was a short pause. "Lara, it's me. I need to talk to you. When is a good time?" "Anytime you want, Dan. Tonight would be perfect. He'll cancel my plans." I shouldn't have said that. He might think I was busy with someone else. "What time is good?" "He'll be home by 6, so anytime after that." "Good." He hung up without saying more. His voice sounded cold and unhappy. I got home just before Dan arrived. He buzzed from the lobby for me to let him in. "Don't you still have your key?" I asked when he buzzed. "I wanted to make sure that you were alone." "Oh no. He thinks I might have someone here. Please come in, Dan." A few minutes later, he knocked on the door. I opened it and saw my husband for the first time in over 3 weeks. "Come in." I went to the kitchen. "Would you like something to eat?" "When did you learn to cook?" "Sorry, that was a little mean. You don't deserve that." He was always the kind one, always polite. "Do you have a drink in your refrigerator?" Why was he asking for something from his own refrigerator? Oh, I see. He doesn't feel at home here anymore. He's a visitor now. I can sense his pain deep inside. This talk isn't going to end well. I got up and went to the refrigerator. There wasn't much inside. I hadn't eaten at home since Dan left. I found a drink tucked away in the back corner and pulled it out. I grabbed a glass from the cabinet and handed it to him. "Thank you," he said as he accepted the drink. He sat at the table and placed the large envelope he was holding next to him. He opened the drink and took a small sip. I was holding my breath, waiting for him to speak. I sat down across from him, preparing for what he might say. "How have you been, Dan?" "Thanks for meeting with me. I've been doing a lot of thinking, Lara. Thinking about us and our marriage. Why we got married. What we both wanted. I have figured a few things out, and I have a better idea of what I want for the future. Here it comes. I suppose I deserve what he plans to say." Dan looked me in the eyes and continued. "I'm not sure that what you want from marriage is the same as what I want. I don't think getting married was a good choice. I care about you a lot. But you want things and a lifestyle that I can't provide anymore. I can't just sit here and wait for you to come back after your nights and weekends away. That's not what I want." I looked at the man who said he cared about me, and now he was saying our marriage was ending. I thought I could handle this, but I've realized I can't anymore. I can't keep waiting while you focus on other things. Dan paused and looked at me. I stared down at the table in my hands. He spoke again, his voice soft. "What kind of life is that for either of us? We can't be married part-time. Maybe you're okay with that, but I'm not. I need a full-time partner." There was another pause. "You don't want what I want. Just me isn't enough for you." He then slid a big envelope across the table to me. I knew then that our life together was really over. I had relied on Dan to show others that I was responsible and could have a normal life. That was just a mask. "What's in the envelope, Dan?" He looked at me, took a sip of his drink, and replied, "I had a lawyer write up a request to end our marriage. It splits everything we have in two. I know we don't have much." Another pause. "We're young, Lara. We can move on and make new choices. You can follow what you want with whoever you choose." He took another sip. "You need to show this to a lawyer. My lawyer thinks this is fair since we don't own much. There's a business card in the envelope. Once you contact my lawyer, they can file the papers. After 90 days, it's official. We would be unmarried." I nodded, still staring at the envelope as if it had a hidden message. "Is this really what you want, Dan?" "Lara, I can't keep living like this. I can't share you with anyone. This isn't a marriage. It's just an arrangement I can't accept anymore. We both deserve more. This way, you can do what you want without worrying about me, and I can find what I want." Dan took another sip, set his drink down, and stood up. He walked to the door. "I'm sorry, Lara, but I can't stay like this." He left, quietly shutting the door behind him. I noticed he hardly drank anything. I sat at the table for over an hour before getting up. I finished what was left in the bottle, then picked up my cell phone. I scrolled through my contacts and called someone specific. "Hello?" came a voice on the other end. "Robbie, what are you doing? Want to get together later?" Talking to Lara was hard. After 2 weeks of thinking, I realized a lot about myself. Yes, I loved her, but I have limits. She doesn't love me fully. Her love comes with conditions. She focuses on her own needs, looking for attention from others. My desire for a wife is second to her interests. Though she says she loves me, I feel her thoughts often wander. I won't settle for being second best again. Since we don't have children, ending the marriage should be simple. I don't feel angry or upset about this. I take a moment to reflect, understanding my feelings and how my desires tangled with what I thought Lara could provide. Our time together was nice, and we had some great moments. However, I started to see that Lara seemed more focused on making me happy while she lived her own life. She didn't really enjoy biking much, but sometimes she would join me. She would also hike with me, even though I knew nature wasn't her favorite. It had been weeks since I last heard from Sarah, and I thought she had moved on to her own things. I thought about calling her, but ultimately, I decided not to. 3 months later, Lara is looking for a new apartment that is smaller than her current one. Her big space is more than she needs, and she wants to live downtown, closer to her job and the lively social scene she likes. Dan took some of his things but left most of them for me. I heard he moved, but I don't know where. His friends are careful with his details and don't tell me much. I haven't contacted his family. The bank where I work is going through some changes, and I was told he'll be moving to a new department in the same building. Perhaps this is the change I need. I've been dating less, and am currently seeing one person. He's nice and seems reliable. He told me he doesn't want something casual and made it clear that if I wanted to see other people, he would prefer to end it now. I told him I had changed, but I worry about keeping that promise. It's been a few months since I last saw Dan. I've been busy with work and taking care of Matilda, so time has gone by quickly. I'm a bit unsure about calling him. Does he want to see me? Is he in a new relationship, or is he just taking a break? I'm not sure. Maybe I should ask around a bit. I keep busy with work, biking, and running. I'm in the best shape of my life, and I work long hours while trying to do my best. But I feel lonely. Lara hasn't contacted me or shown any interest in fixing things in our marriage. I guess that confirms how things are. I feel hesitant to go out and try to meet someone else. I can't let how I feel about Lara affect how I see other women. Sarah is very different from Lara. She focuses more on the important things: family, home, career, doing right, and making the world better. I should call her and see if she wants to get together this weekend. Maybe I could take her and Matilda on a hike. I'll pack a lunch. That sounds nice, especially with the perfect weather. Well, Dan called me this morning. It felt a bit awkward since I haven't heard from him in over 4 months. We talked for about 30 minutes. He asked if I had any plans for the weekend and if Matilda and I wanted to go on a hike and have a picnic with him. That surprised me, not the hiking, but that he wanted Matilda to come too. She's now 3 years old and has lots of energy but gets tired quickly. Regardless, I said yes to his invitation. Now I need to find my hiking boots, and I'm not sure where they are. I'm feeling nervous. I picked an easy hike and packed a lot of food and water. I have 2 hiking poles, but I'm not sure if we will need them. I also packed a thin blanket for us to sit on while we eat. I even cleaned my car. I know kids need car seats, so I hope Sarah has one. On Saturday morning around 10 a.m., I drove to Sarah's house. I noticed a car seat in the driveway and a backpack ready to go. When I got out of the car, Sarah greeted me with a warm smile. She looked great. Her hair was shorter, and she wore a plaid shirt and shorts. I had met Matilda once before, so I introduced myself again. She was spinning around, clearly excited for our adventure. I installed the child seat in the back of my car, then we packed the trunk with our gear, and off we went. I drove slowly, realizing I had a child in the car for the first time. I felt responsible for her safety, which was new to me, so I made sure to follow the speed limit. The hike began well, but I quickly learned that young kids need breaks, especially after drinking a lot of Gatorade during the ride. Sarah apologized for Matilda needing to rest, but I smiled and said, "Hey, kids need to do what they need to do." I adjusted my plans for how far we would hike, and even though I hoped we could reach a viewpoint for our lunch, we stopped when Matilda ran out of energy. We spread out a blanket and had our meal. I took pictures and helped Matilda take some too. Later, I realized that day was important for me in a way I didn't know at the time. I would be evaluated for a significant opportunity over the next few months, including various challenges and tasks. When we returned to Sarah's house, she invited me to join them for dinner. I hesitated, but when I didn't respond right away, she said, "If you have something else to do, that's okay." It wasn't going to be a fancy meal. I thought for a moment and replied, "No, I don't have anything else planned. Thank you. I'd love to stay for dinner." As we stepped inside, I took off my hiking boots, and Matilda took my hand, leading me down the hall to show off her toy collection. She excitedly showed me almost every toy she owned, demonstrating all the moves her Toy Story dolls could make. She pulled Woody's string, and he exclaimed, "Somebody's poisoned the water hole." It was priceless. Dinner was enjoyable, though having a small child staring could be a bit odd, almost like being quietly watched. I helped Sarah prepare the meal while Matilda colored at the counter. Her skill at staying within the lines impressed me. She asked whether her balloons should be red, yellow, or both, and I suggested they be different colors. She thought for a moment, but eventually used both. Dinner was delicious. Afterward, I helped clean up and then was invited to read a story with Matilda on the sofa. I did most of the reading, but if I missed a word, she would ask me to go back and read it again. She playfully called me silly a few times. When Matilda was tucked in bed, Sarah and I sat in the living room with a drink. I asked, "How do you do it? Being a mother and a busy architect, how do you manage everything?" Sarah laughed and replied, "Some nights I bring work home, and I'm used to getting by on little sleep. Some days are challenging." I nodded and remembered that when we started meeting once a month last year, we hadn't talked much about Matilda. Why is that? I wanted to keep that part of me separate from her. I can manage my feelings well, I guess. My needs are different from my daughter's needs. So, while I don't try to hide her, I don't show her off either, if that makes sense. I suppose. I took a drink. She's really something. I see a lot of you in her. Sarah laughed again. She likes you. If she didn't, you wouldn't be reading together. That made me smile. I was about to ask if it was time for me to go, but I didn't have to. Sarah stood up, took my hand, and led me into another room. That night was one of the best I ever had, filled with warmth and connection. We enjoyed each other's company and shared a gentle embrace. The bed was a bit messy, and before we settled in for the night, we had to fix it a few times. Sarah was truly amazing. She was real, openly sharing her feelings. Being a young mother gave her a different view on life. She didn't have time for tricks or games. On the other hand, Lara saw relationships as a challenge, focused on excitement and short events. For her, it was more about winning, seeking new connections to satisfy her needs. But I couldn't be a part of that anymore. 4 months later, Sarah. Some may think I was just waiting for Dan's marriage to fail so I could step in. Maybe there's a bit of truth to that. I saw that Dan was a good man who needed to find his own way. I knew the importance of being patient and letting things happen naturally, and they did. Dan's wife struggled to appreciate the wonderful man he was, unable to see the love he offered. He cared for her enough that he accepted their unusual living situation just to spend time with her. Lara thought an open marriage would work. She believed she could handle her relationships without hurting Dan. That was questionable. Her actions showed she didn't fully think about his feelings. When I first met Dan, I had just gone through a divorce. I was focused on working long hours to support myself and my daughter, who was in daycare. I wasn't looking for a serious relationship. However, I sometimes wanted connection. As I got to know Dan and he shared about his marriage, I was surprised. What kind of person would allow their partner to have relationships outside of their own? But as we talked more, he shared his hope to explore their lifestyle and that he wanted a traditional family someday. So we agreed to a friendship. A few times a month, we would meet to connect and explore our bond. Over time, I learned that Dan had a lot of love to share and needed a companion and a family. He tried to build that connection with Lara, but it wasn't mutual. Don't get me wrong, they were close, but she never fully committed to him in the way he needed. Dan was all in, but Lara held back, thinking about her other options. Dan ended up at a disadvantage. I got to know Dan quietly and understood what he wanted and what he was like. All I had to do was wait for Lara to create problems, and I knew she would, which she eventually did. I decided that the best choice was to give Dan the space he needed to recover and figure out what he wanted before I took any further steps. My plan worked out well. Lara was unable to handle her own issues and ultimately pushed Dan away. Even love has its limits, especially regarding commitment. I thought she was so lost in her own thoughts that she really believed Dan would put up with her actions forever. How did she think this would all end? Their situation came to a head sooner than I expected. Dan didn't say much about the night at the hotel when Lara had a bad experience with someone she knew. I found out later by chance. It turned out a coworker of mine knew the person involved and was casually talking about it with others. Word spread that this person could be aggressive in relationships. I have a feeling he will eventually meet someone, or maybe her partner, who won't accept that kind of behavior. Lara's lack of understanding about her problems might end up working in my favor. Dan is a great guy, and I know he wants a stable family. Matilda is quickly growing fond of him, and they have fun playing together. Dan brings her small toys and gifts almost every time he visits. My home has never had so many flowers on the table since we started seeing each other. I'm trying to take my time. So far, I haven't been great at choosing the right partners. But I can see when someone is truly good. I received a letter in the mail saying that my marriage is officially over. I'm single again. It has been almost a year since my marriage to Lara ended. This past year has been a mix of feelings for me. I was really hurt by Lara. She didn't fight for our relationship at all. When I told her that I couldn't accept her seeing other men, she didn't do or say anything to show she might change her ways to save our marriage. That made it clear how little I meant to her. She didn't even consider making changes. Having a family was not on her mind, and children didn't matter to her. I wanted a family. I wanted the stability of a partner and children. I longed for that life. Lara was not the right person for me. Divorce was unavoidable. I spoke with our families, and they all understood. They quietly knew what Lara was like, and while they hoped she would change, they accepted my decision to leave. Her family wished me well. Just when I thought life was tough, I found support. I'm thankful for the two people who stepped in. Sarah said she needs a full-time partner. My daughter needs a full-time father. I think I have a good candidate. My daughter has been asking if Dan is going to be her daddy. So far, my only answer has been, "That would be nice, wouldn't it?" And she nods. It's time to move things along a bit. I have a plan for the summer. It involves travel and camping, but in a way that will be comfortable for all of us. My parents have an RV. It's a big vehicle I call the land yacht. It's one of my dad's hobbies, and he and my mom travel a lot with it. They've offered to lend it to me any time, but I've never really wanted to use something so large before. My idea of camping is quite different. But I've never camped with a small child either. My dad is not one to do things halfway. When I got divorced from Lara, he congratulated me on finally getting my life together. I was surprised by his comment, but I knew he just wanted the best for me. At first, I thought he meant I had made mistakes, but I realized he understood my relationship with Lara was complicated. So in his own way, he was expressing relief that I was moving on. It was a typical dad moment. My parents knew I was seeing Sarah, and they had met both Sarah and Matilda when I dropped something off at their house. My mother welcomed them as if they were very special visitors. She was particularly excited to spend time with Matilda, taking her inside to share treats and milk. It seemed my mom saw Matilda as close to a grandchild. I chose to stay out of the way, just like my dad. But now, I was starting to feel differently. I was shifting my focus from just me to us. I began to think about what was best for Sarah and Matilda instead of just myself. With summer approaching, I started to plan a camping trip. I realized that camping with a small child would be quite different from how I usually did it. I liked to pack everything I needed and hike into the hills. Lara never joined me because she didn't like being outdoors, so I hadn't pursued that with her. This camping trip would be a new experience. I wasn't sure if driving a big RV was the best choice. But my dad, always practical, explained, "Women often need to use the restroom, especially at night. They don't want to walk in the dark and run into something unexpected. So take the RV and have fun. It's free, so what do you have to lose?" With that, it was decided that the RV would be our transportation. My parents were doing well financially. My dad was smart and had worked hard, making good investments that paid off over time. He enjoyed his gadgets, and the RV was equipped with modern comforts, including satellite and internet. My main job was learning how to drive it safely. When I proposed the idea, Sarah was a bit unsure at first, but Matilda was excited. We even visited my parents' house, where my dad showed them around the RV and all its features. I had given him a heads-up so he had it ready with power and water, and the air conditioner made it nice inside. My mom brought out fresh baked goods for Matilda and showed her where she would sleep. My dad also offered to connect a small car he pulled behind the RV for easy travel when we reached our destination, but I declined and worked on attaching my bike rack instead. So in mid-July, after practicing driving with my dad and getting his approval, the three of us hit the road to Wyoming, passing through several states on our way to Colorado and then back home. I felt this trip would be meaningful for us. By the end, Sarah and I would know more about our future together. Spending time together, especially with a small child, would test our compatibility. I worried about meeting Sarah's expectations and connecting with Matilda. Feeling nervous, I decided it would be best to let Sarah take the lead in parenting Matilda. I didn't want to step on her toes as Matilda's mother. I soon found out that Matilda had her own likes and dislikes, like any 3-year-old. My dad arranged a proper car seat in the RV for her so that Sarah could stay close while we traveled. Matilda had plenty of toys and books to keep her busy, and we made regular stops for breaks. We planned a bunch of fun activities to enjoy on our way, which helped Matilda take quick naps during the drive. Sarah was really excited at one point during our trip. Matilda and I were with Dan in his parents' big RV. We were on a summer vacation together. What started as a camping trip turned into a cozy RV adventure. I had never done this before, but after a few days, I found it nice to have a comfy bed to sleep in and a good bathroom. Matilda loved spending time with Dan and wanted his attention all day. Dan made sure we got outside and away from the RV each day. We hiked and rode bikes a lot. I had a special seat for Matilda on the back of my bike, but I was happy to let Dan use it for this trip. Matilda really wanted that. I think we all enjoyed the trip. Matilda was thrilled, and so was I. I got to see a side of Dan that made me feel good about him. He's a good man, smart, caring, strong, and thoughtful, and he really wants a family. I could see it in how he looked at Matilda, and the nice glance he gave me when we were alone. This trip was great for me, too, especially after Matilda went to bed. Dan and I had some time just for the two of us. We shared nice talks that brought us closer. One evening, we cleaned up and dressed nicely to go out for dinner. Later that night, we enjoyed a special moment. He gave me a relaxing massage with scented oil, showing that he cared. It was a day that I will always remember. After our vacation, I needed a break to get back to normal. I went back to work, and Matilda returned to daycare. She wanted me to take her to Dan's place, so I explained that he had to go back to work too. She seemed to understand, but she was sad he wasn't there. The RV adventure was a success. We returned it and thanked my parents for letting us use it. Matilda proudly showed my mother how her bunk bed worked and climbed up carefully. My mother was happy, thinking about having grandchildren someday. My dad checked the RV outside, asking me all the usual questions he had. I assured him I did everything just like he said, and that we cleaned the inside too, which made me laugh since I knew he would help with anything Sarah or Matilda needed. 2 weeks later, I suggested to Sarah that we take a day trip. We packed up my car and set off. The weather was supposed to be nice. We had a great time hiking, and even without the RV, we managed just fine. I was thinking about my future and what might happen next. It's been over a year since I last saw Dan. I moved to a new apartment closer to work. I've been seeing a few different guys, but it hasn't gone beyond friendship. After Dan left, I started to think about what my life could be. I know I'm still young and have time to settle down and maybe marry again. I realize now that I shouldn't have taken Dan for granted. That was a mistake. I should have paid more attention to him, but I thought he understood me. I believed he didn't mind what I did, as long as I focused on him sometimes and we pretended to be like a regular couple. After we got married, spending time together did not feel exciting. He enjoyed outdoor activities, but I wasn't a big fan of getting dirty. He liked going to the theater, but I found it dull. Instead, I preferred going out with friends and dancing. When we did go out, I often noticed other people around us, and I could tell Dan noticed too. 2 months ago, I had a small health issue and went to see my doctor. She found an infection and gave me some medicine, telling me to avoid close activities for a few weeks until I felt better. She also suggested my partners use protection, which seemed wise, but I found it uncomfortable. I was feeling a strong need for connection, and the medicine was making me feel unwell. So, I came up with a plan. I had a quiet talk with Matilda to share my intentions and ask for her blessing to ask her mother to marry me. She excitedly said yes. I wanted the proposal to be a surprise for her mother, so I asked Matilda to keep it a secret. She was so excited, and I wondered how long she would keep it under wraps. I planned a hike for us over the weekend. Matilda had been looking at me with wide eyes filled with excitement, giggling every time she saw me. I told her about the hike on Saturday, and she dashed to her room to get ready, even though it was only Thursday. Dan suggested we hike to his favorite park and have a picnic. When we arrived, Matilda eagerly took Dan's hand and whispered something to him. He nodded, and she laughed, looking at me. I had a feeling something special was about to happen. At the picnic area, we set things up, and Matilda bounced around with energy, full of joy. Dan looked at her and asked, "Well, do you think this is a good time?" She nodded enthusiastically and giggled, and I had a good idea of what was coming next. Dan reached into his backpack and pulled out a small box. I couldn't believe it. He got down on one knee, took my hand, and looked into my eyes. "Sarah, I love you so much, and I want us to be together as a family forever. Will you marry me?" My heart raced with excitement as I realized this wasn't just a proposal for me, but also for Matilda. Dan knew we were a package deal. He had even told Matilda about his plan ahead of time. She had come to see him as a father, just as I saw him as my partner. I had dreamed of this moment, especially since our camping trip together, which made me realize he was the right man for both of us. "Yes," I finally said, feeling incredibly happy. Dan jumped up with joy, and Matilda wrapped her arms around us both. It was a moment I will always treasure, and I felt my hopes for a bright future coming to life. After we finished hugging and Matilda told her mother that she wanted to call me Daddy, I was about to suggest we share our news with her parents. Then Matilda said, "I have a surprise for you." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small white object, handing it to me. "Congratulations, Dad." I looked at it and saw 2 blue lines in a tiny window. I had to look again to understand what it meant. My eyes opened wide in surprise and my mouth dropped open. I glanced at Sarah and she nodded at me. "Yes, I'm 5 weeks along. It happened during our trip." I jumped with joy and hugged her tightly. 18 months later, I was walking in town today when I saw Dan across the street with a woman and 2 kids. I had to look twice because I wasn't sure if it was really him. When I looked again, I knew it was. He was with a woman, a small girl, and a stroller with a baby. The woman looked like she was expecting, around 6 months along, I guessed. They were laughing, and the little girl, about 4 or 5, was holding Dan's hand. In that moment, I realized what I might have had if I had made different choices. My life had been filled with short-lived relationships and missed chances at true happiness. I was happy for him, but I wished it could have been with me. Dan. I never expected that my life would change so much after my marriage to Laura ended 2.5 years ago. I found what I was looking for. I met someone I can love and who loves me back. Sarah is amazing and she makes me very happy. I also gained a daughter. Matilda is full of energy and always moving. I think she enjoys having a dad. My parents are excited to have grandchildren to spoil. My dad even made changes to his RV to make it more comfortable for kids without me asking him to. My mom loves to bake for the kids, even though the youngest is just a year old and talks nonstop. Sarah is expecting our 3rd child. We bought a new older house that I plan to fix up. Sarah is in charge of the design and he'll handle the building. Her father thinks we should start our own business. He's probably right, and after the baby is born and we settle in, we'll come up with a plan. At the last family barbecue, Sarah's dad and my dad talked about future plans and said they would be ready to share ideas and support when we wanted to discuss business. I'm not sure if I want them that involved, but we can think about it. I just want to make sure I can take care of my family. Sarah. I guess I get the last words. I thank my lucky stars every day for finding such a wonderful man. Dan is a caring husband and father. Matilda loves him so much. Our baby, Adrienne, is a year old, and she and her big sister have their dad completely wrapped around their fingers. Baby number 3 is on the way, and I think this one might be a boy.